Hi everyone, Tom O'Connor here. Welcome back to the eDiscovery channel. We're going to do a kind of a special guest appearance today. I'm not being joined by Rocky because I did this kind of impromptu. And those of you who are seeing this now are, I'm sure, recognize Joy Heath Rush, the CEO of ILTA. Joy, thanks for joining me on short notice.
Hey, any excuse to hang with you for a little while, Tom, is a good one. I'll take it.
Well, thank you. Obviously, you know, what's on everyone's mind is COVID, quarantine. How do we get out and do stuff again? And you folks at ILTA are grabbing the bull by the horns. As far as I can tell, you're going to be with the live version of ILTACON21 in August. You're going to be the first group in our space to go back to at least a partial live session. Why don't you explain to the people who haven't heard about it how you're going to do this, what you're calling a hybrid conference?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. So we'll be in person in Las Vegas, beginning at the third week of August. We can't wait to be together, but we know that there'll be some people who cannot join us. I mean, one of the things we learned last year doing ILTA we had 1,100 people who were joining us for the first time.
Yes.
Now, in some cases, that's because they would never have been able to travel because of where they are, their position in their organization. So we don't want to lose the benefit of having access to those folks. We had people from 26 countries. We had speakers we had never been able to have before because they could appear remotely.
Yep.
So what we're looking for this year is kind of a best of both worlds. So what we've done is design our program. So for in some years, for example, we have one day that's really devoted to trainers or to litigation support or to corporate. In this case, we're a little bit more spread out so that the people who are there in person can have truly content that's for them every day. But we're having, rather than the 10 or 12 sessions at every time slot, we're having more like 5 or 6 sessions at every time slot. And most of the rooms will be both in person and digital.
Okay.
So there will be both speakers and participants, both live, in person, and digital. I think this will create a dynamic that's brand new. I think we're all excited to see how this will turn out. But one of the interesting things that we're working on right now is actually a great advantage of digital is people will engage in the chat. But of course, they're not going to do that if they're sitting in the room and they won't turn to their neighbor and speak out loud, in front of us. So it's thinking about how to carry all the cool stuff from an only digital conference into a hybrid. So as I said, at every time slot, we'll have 5 or 6 sessions. They'll be delivered both digitally and in person. And in some rooms, it'll be video, and in some rooms, it'll be only audio. But that'll be happening at every time slot.
So anybody who attends virtually is literally not going to miss anything. They'll have the full span of all the sessions.
The full educational experience. Exactly.
Yes. Right.
Obviously the networking is different, although we have some cool things planned there. And we'll have some rooms set up that have a bunch of iPads where we have remote participants, and the in-person people can come by and stop and sit and chat with whomever is there. So we're going to try different things to bring the groups more closely together. I think something Dawn would love to do, apologies for that, something Dawn would love to do, but whether or not we can do it or not, is she would love to do the Shellbot thing. So if any of your listeners are fans of Big Bang Theory, you know that Sheldon created a little robot with an iPad on it and to be Shellbot so that he could move around the world. So we've been talking about whether or not we can create kind of a Shellbot experience. But what I'm saying,
would be funny.
We're trying to innovate. We're trying to do things that nobody else has done to give people a fantastic and unique experience.
Well, I think first of all, just by doing the hybrid conference, you're doing something nobody else has done, right? I mean, this is going to be unique. Tell me some of the logistical problems that came up about that. I mean, obviously, as I've read, you've had to limit the number of people who can attend in person. Was that the hotel, the city? Was that just you saying we're
No,
going
it was
to do it?
actually at the time it was the state. So one of the things that's been challenging is it's a moving target.
Yes.
So, and one of the things the state of Nevada was requiring is they have this event health plan protocol. So at so many days before your event, you have to file your mitigation plan. My guess is that's not going to go away after COVID. People are going to be much more attuned to any issues with communicable diseases. So at some point you have to say, okay, we're going to stop at this point in time and do this, even though things are changing.
Right.
Now, as of May 1st, responsibility reverted from the state of Nevada to the city of Las Vegas. They are able to have a different set of protocols. They could be tighter, they could be looser. We are already seeing that Vegas is loosened up quite a bit. But just from the logistics of dealing with the hotel, you cannot change this every day. No. So one of the things I advise my team to do is to start with the kind of strictest level that the state called for, and even beyond that in some cases. It's always easier to loosen up. It's hard to tighten up.
Yeah. So part of that I also saw on the website was you're going to require proof of vaccination for attendance, live attendance.
Require people to be vaccinated. I will be very upfront. We have not determined the verification methodology.
That was you're reading my mind.
One of the reasons is currently the city of Las Vegas is piloting 2 different vaccination passport applications with local businesses. So we don't know if it'll be one of those 2, both of those 2, something different, or they'll decide to dispense with that altogether.
Or will it even be in play by August? Right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So in that particular instance, for example, we really do have to comply with what the local requirements are. And so what we're saying is you must be vaccinated, you must be prepared to show proof of vaccination, but what that's going to look like at this point,
we don't really know.
We don't know. That's exactly.
Well, that's nice. That's nice to have that complete level of uncertainty hanging over your head.
Well, it really makes the job of my event planning people very entertaining and interesting.
Yeah. I'm
like,
sure that's a word they would use, right?
Let's see. I think how I usually hear it is today's COVID curveball.
Yeah. Now, is there any, and I don't want to get people's hopes up, is there a sense or a possibility the number of attendees could go up if the city changes the rules?
We're absolutely looking at that. And one of the things that is a factor for us is that when we had this very strict limitation, and at the time we had the deadline for filing our health plan, it was 25%. So we had to figure, how can we do 25% occupancy, given the size of education rooms we have, the exhibit hall that we have, and still do kind of daily health checks and things like that, which were going to be required. So what we decided to do was centralize the event on a single floor rather than have it be spread out over multiple floors within Mandalay. Excuse me, Tom, it's my allergies.
That's all right.
So we decided to go to a single floor so that if we have to continue with these kind of health screenings, taking temperatures and things, that it would be a lot easier to do than doing it across 4 floors, right? So given that we are confined to a floor, there's still lots of space, but that means we cannot grow infinitely the way we could if we were spread out over 3 or 4 floors.
Right, right.
Interestingly enough, of all the properties we regularly work with, literally Mandalay is the only one whose exhibit hall is big enough to accommodate the kinds of social distancing requirements that exist for exhibitors, where you have to have space between the booths.
Right.
So sometimes you have to make lemonade. You know, we're glad in this case that we're with Mandalay because it makes that possible. That's such a big space.
Yeah. So on that front, let's switch to talk about the vendors. You've also limited the number of vendor attendees. Is that correct?
Yes, because for one thing, we don't want to get it out of whack. Nobody wants there to be 3 times more business partners than members. You know, it's just not productive.
Right.
So we're keeping the numbers basically the same. but it also is having us look at the hours the exhibit hall is open, because
Yes.
it does take manpower. I mean, Tom, as you know, I've been an exhibitor at ILTA, right? I've kind of seen it from every every angle, and you cannot have a single person by themselves sitting at a booth for 12 hours. It's not human, it's not realistic.
No.
And so thinking about how to man that when the hours that the exhibit hall is open, so that it maximizes traffic and access for both members and business partners, but also doesn't run anybody into the ground, is something that we're absolutely thinking about.
And how did your vendor community react? Has everybody been supportive?
I
Was
have
there
to
a was there a land rush for the spots? I mean, how did you
uh,
deal with that?
we did our normal lottery. So what we do is we do a lottery for booth selection,
Yep.
and so people draw in the virtual draw in the lottery, and then they choose and they get their spots. One of the things that we're doing this year is Dawn calls it a Disney exit. I had to learn what that means, but you know how at many amusement parks, if you exit the cool roller coaster, it'll take you out through the cool gift shop that relates to the cool roller coaster. In this case, we have some spots for demo rooms, for example, that are on the exit path from the educational rooms.
Oh,
And so that's something different. That's something a little bit different. And so people that chose earlier in the lottery could pick spots like that, for example.
yeah,
But I have to tell you, the business partner community has been wonderful.
good.
And we've tried to be completely and utterly transparent with them. It's like, we know that there are challenges. For example, we always get a large contingent from Australia. Well, right now their borders are closed. They can't fly here. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
You need to participate in a different way. You need to participate digitally. We're going to try to make those
I talked
opportunities.
to I talked to Ian Campbell the other day. We're just having a conversation about something else. I said, "Yeah, so I told him I'm planning on going to ILTA, just at least for the first day. I want to be there and see the buzz, yada yada." I said, "Are you going?" He goes, "If they'll let me in." He said, "Ask me like the week before the show. God knows what's going to happen between the U.S. and Canada.
That's
That's
exactly right. I mean, the Canadians have had a little bit more trouble obtaining vaccine, it appears, than we have in the United States, and
yes.
that's been a challenging situation.
They're
And so,
also talking about a passport." He
yeah,
said, "Not only have to worry about getting out, but I need to worry about getting back in."
no, that's exactly right. And when you deal with all these jurisdictions, and I think within the
Oh,
United States, one of the biggest challenges is, of course, we have 55 jurisdictions, which is the 50 states, the District of Columbia, and the 4 territories.
yeah,
No two of them are exactly the same.
yeah, yeah.
But we have to be governed by the laws of where we're holding our event. And
Yeah, sure.
but as I
No,
said, partners have been great, and they've really embraced some of the different opportunities you have for engagement.
so that's the other thing you mentioned briefly, social interaction. Of course, a big part of ILTA has always been some of the vendor parties and receptions, shall we say. Are they going to be able to do those? Is it too restricted for them to attempt to do those? Any sense of what's going to happen there?
That's a really interesting question. It's going to depend so much on what happens in Vegas,
Yeah,
because a lot of times these events are off property. You know, and
yeah, good point.
it is a little bit different when we're at Mandalay versus Caesars. So for those of you that are familiar with Las Vegas, Mandalay is at the extreme southern end of the strip. It's down there. It's really Luxor's the other property there, MGM Grands, but it's not right in the middle of the strip like Caesars is. So it's not quite as easy to move from property to property, but I pretty much guarantee there'll be some events in the Luxor. So
Ah,
it's whatever is going to be what the city of Las Vegas allows at those events. But one of the things we're doing purposefully, and we would have done this at ILTACON 2020 in person if we'd been able to have it, is we've given up our Tuesday night event. It was not particularly well attended. People would rather have another night to either go out with friends or to meet with their business partners. And so both Tuesday and Wednesday are free nights now. So
okay.
if the
They can
business partner
schedule.
want to do additional events. And that way they can also do more smaller events if they need to. So rather than a dinner for 80, maybe they were going to do a dinner for 10 or
Right.
something like that.
Or have different teams do smaller dinners. Yeah.
Exactly right.
So
Exactly right.
on that line, I have to ask, Gail's favorite event, of course, no matter who she was working for in any given year, was the Monday night party with the costume opportunities, which
Mhm.
Gail being in New Orleans, well, didn't matter before New Orleans. She was so big. Is that, I didn't see that on the schedule. Has that
No,
been?
that's not going to be on the schedule this
Yeah.
year. That one was a little
Smart.
bit too
Smart.
difficult. The other thing is that the food service has
Oh, yeah.
changed at every hotel.
Yeah.
So big buffets are kind of out.
Yeah.
And boxed, pre-packaged, pre-assembled meals are much more the standard at events right now.
Sure.
How much of that will stay into the future? I don't know. I guarantee some of it will, because it's simply easier to manage.
It's just easier. Yeah.
Associated with food, right?
But I think all the attendees are going to know that. That's not. I don't think there'll be any grumbling about that.
No, I don't think so either. It's just people that would not expect this year to be different, or just in that respect are being a little unrealistic. The issue will be how much sticks. So like my team was at Mandalay in February to do their planning. So they experienced some of these things firsthand. So it's not just theoretical. My group can tell you how things like this work. So for example, Mandalay has touchless check-in for the hotel. They send you your reservation, you get a QR code, you go up to a kiosk and you print your key.
Wow.
And they did. Now, I'm betting you a lot of that is going to continue after. The hotels will have invested in this technology.
Yeah.
They will debug the technology.
Your
Yes, you can
assistant.
see my assistant is here helping me. Hello, Comet. She loves to come and join these things. My geriatric cat.
I feel it.
But some of these things are just will continue forward, just like I think some of the things with food service will.
Yeah.
So we're going to.
Well, I'm all for the kiosk lines because, as you know, one of the worst parts of the whole Las Vegas experience is the Disneyland type lines at the check-in. You know, anything they can do to speed that up is most welcome in my mind. You know, I'm looking forward to how that works. And you know, when your team was there, were there regular restaurants open? I've talked to several people who've been out there, and they said all the restaurants they came across, you had to have a reservation ahead of time. There was no walk up and say table for two. It was they controlled it, you know, out of necessity.
In February, but as of May 1, when Vegas took over, we are seeing things relax in Las Vegas significantly, and we're going to keep on top of it. Now, one of the things that Mandalay did for us, which we really appreciate, is there are several organizations who are having large events through the summer. So the first huge one is World of Concrete. It's an enormous show. I know, right? It's like,
how did I miss that?
I know it's like at the top of my Twitter feed.
So the World of Concrete.
They're normally one of the bigger trade association shows in the world, actually.
Right.
And they're in Vegas in June. And so the Mandalay put us together. That is, these various groups that are having events through the summer so that we can talk with each other about what the guidance means, how did it go? Yeah. And actually, those of us in the legal space are doing that too. So we have, I call them the Legal Association Brain Trust. So
there you go.
It's the folks from ALA, AALL, NALP, us, CLOC, ACC, NAWA, and we all meet together, LMA, we all meet together regularly. And we talk about what events are you doing? When are you going to in-person? What's hybrid? What's digital? What platform are you using? What guidance are you getting? Where are you going to be? Because we want to support each other, because it really takes a village. And that information exchange has been absolutely invaluable.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is the ACC doing a conference in the fall?
In October, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And then LMA, no, not LMA, ALA is in October.
Okay.
And our planning be in person. They're in either Florida or Austin, Texas. It's one of those two places.
Oh, Florida, there are no rules in Florida, so, you know, it doesn't matter.
Well, so I hear, and a mutual friend of ours who shall remain nameless, but I'll tell you later off the recording.
Okay.
Actually went into a dry cleaner laundromat with a mask and was told he would not be assisted if he kept his mask on. And this
If you
was
kept the mask on.
Yes, yes.
Oh my God.
That was a little bit of a different experience.
That's one of my last questions though about the logistics. What's the mask requirement in Las Vegas and or the hotel? Mask required when you're just walking around and.
Yes, and actually, there's new guidance from Las Vegas about that for indoor events for people who have been vaccinated.
Okay.
So what we have to determine is whether that's one where we're going to change our standard to loosen it to be closer to the Vegas standard, or whether we maintain our mask mandate.
Right.
Right now, our plan is to keep the mask mandate, but that could change.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I've been vaccinated. I think we were talking about it before we went live here. I've been vaccinated for several months, being part of the chronologically challenged segment of the population. But I still wear my mask when I go to the grocery store, or we have the same thing. I'm not required to since I have been vaccinated, but you know, I just feel a little bit safer. There's always the outside chance you could get it, and then I could be a transmitter even if I don't get sick. You know, anything I can do to cut it down. So that doesn't particularly bother me. As long as they let me smoke a cigar out in the casino, I don't care what.
Yeah, and actually, for people, I was talking to somebody, a friend of my son's yesterday. He's getting ready to go to the first time, has never been.
Okay.
I said, okay, just be prepared for the smoking. And he's like, you mean people can smoke indoors in Las Vegas? And I was like, yes.
Yes.
Your short answer, yes.
And they do.
And they do.
Although it's, you know, as you know, the ventilation is remarkable, and they must spend a fortune on cleansing the air there. So yeah, it's really good. So I think that was all the logistical questions I have. My other question is, so what made you go ahead and decide to do it hybrid, to have the live component? I mean, that must have been a tough decision to make, especially 7 or 8 months ago.
That's exactly right. It was a very tough decision. And before we move past logistics, I should just say, although they're not so much in the logistics, the education is what brings people, obviously.
Oh, well, yeah.
And our volunteer leaders who are working on this, particularly Martha Briel and Mike Vecito, who are our co-chairs this year, have taken this so much in stride. You know, here are the physical limitations we have, and they have developed with that set of pretty restrictive parameters, an amazing set of education. Good. So that'll be a great conversation to have. But I just want to make sure to recognize them, because this year in particular, so much attention has been paid to logistics. Everybody gets that, right? But those volunteers year after year produce this absolutely primo content. I just couldn't not let them go unacknowledged.
Well, so, I think that's a really good point. I've said this before. This isn't, you know, anything new to you, but I think you ILTA have the premier educational content of all the conferences. And I go to pretty much all, or in the past went to pretty much all of them. You know, we've gotten more and more into the vendor dominated. Well, first of all, we got more into less and less shows. Yeah. You know, we're having less conferences. They're being more dominated by vendors. It's hard to get. I was on a call this morning for the board, the general board for ACEDS. And we were talking about how do we do a webinar on a certain subject and make sure that we're not taking a side. You know, we want to present both sides. And is it, you know, going to be a debate? Is it going to be a, you know, counterpoint?
Yes,
Saturday Night Live, Tom, you stupid moron.
Yes. Wait, what would we do without those folks? I remember those. So
yeah, but your educational content, and I, you know, I've said this many times before. I'm not just saying this because we're talking now. I think it's second to none. It's an extremely high level of educational content. And also across the board, you know, I have blinders on because I'm on e-discovery. I'm a litigation support guy, but you also have something that's 5 miles wide as well as a mile deep. So it's really an amazing educational perspective, no matter what it is you're interested in, whether it's backroom software, operating systems, hardware, software, litigation, not litigation, it doesn't matter. There's something there for everybody. And it truly is really, really, yeah. So I would say kudos to those two people as well. Job well done. And honestly, even more needed now.
Totally. I mean,
you know,
our volunteers, their agility, their flexibility, on top of all the changes in their day jobs, I mean, hats off, right?
yeah, yeah.
But
So how was the internal debate about doing this?
yeah, I mean,
Was it?
believe it or not, we had people that would have come last year if we'd put it
Oh,
on.
I believe it. I believe it.
And so a lot of factors came into account. I mean, we obviously were in close touch with our hotel partners, and what they were hearing, what was happening with the city of Las Vegas, with the governor of Nevada. We have absolutely fantastic outside counsel, who our outside counsel in this area is really focused on events, and in many cases, large scale events, much bigger than ours. And he had a lot of intelligence to bring to the table about what was happening in other industries in the convention and space sector. And so we said, you know what? If it had been after October 1st, it would have been pretty much a slam dunk. I won't say completely because things can change and I don't want to have Uber. Anything before April 1st, that would have been an easy decision too.
Right.
As we got into the summer, that was the key area, but our intelligence told us that either we would be able to have an event that was appropriately safe because of everything we had learned about doing that, or that, God forbid, the world would be a much different place and nobody would be having events.
Yeah.
And that's the way we looked. We knew that we had protocols, procedures, and knowledge to do an event safely within the guidance, and we thought the world would be there. And so we decided it was the right thing to do, and I'm glad we did. I think people they're itching to be together.
Well, I can tell you that's what I'm seeing and hearing from people is a lot of people, of course, are weighing the safety concerns on a personal level, but really, want to go. I think the secondary concern is, especially for law firm people, will they have travel budget? It's that's a whole other issue, is how the firms and the businesses are dealing with this. And, as one of my friends said to me, so yeah, I'm going to go back to work. We're supposed to report back to the office July 15th. And I've been working at home for a year, and I'm going to say, hey, I need some travel money to go to Las Vegas for a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. That's going to go over really well.
Well, and sometimes Las Vegas is tough anyway. There's some organizations that aren't crazy about sending people to Vegas.
I mean, it's just
on the other hand,
the perception,
is Vegas lives and dies by hospitality, their economy. They're going to do it right.
Oh yeah.
They have to. It's in their economic best interest.
As you said about the World of Concrete, they become a major conference center. In addition to the whole gambling and resort issue, they have become a major conference center, and you can get reasonably priced flights, as you know, from virtually anywhere in the country. So, but I think you're right. It is from the optics point of view, National Harbor is probably a little easier sell.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's no question. But on the other hand, again, Mandalay's got the size of conference center, and we know people in Vegas have taken their quieter months they had during COVID and used that time to put in new processes, new procedures, new ventilation systems, new registration systems, because it's A, the right thing to do, but B, they're economically incented to do it right.
Yes, of course. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that things are I won't say going smoothly, because I'm sure there's been more than a few bumps. But
Relearning
it
your
seems like,
job every day, there's always some challenges for sure.
yeah, but it sounds like it's coming along now. We just all hope that, as I said, there won't be any reversals in the trends as far as infections. And I guess the big problem now is the variants, that we can keep a handle on things. But it seems like the vaccinations are handling the variants pretty well. So I'm just optimistic about that as well. So I look forward to being there and seeing you there.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you too, Tom. And you've been on calls with me before, so you've probably seen this. But one of our ILTA members gave me this bell, because for those of you who may not know me, I'm a little bit known for my hugs.
Yeah.
So she gave me this bell that said "ring for hug," and she said I can carry it around.
There
and
you
if
go.
people are ready to be hugged, then they just need to take the bell and ring it, and then I know that I can hug them.
I'm guessing you're going to get that bell rung a few times.
Once or twice, maybe.
Pardon the euphemism.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Well, that's great. Thanks for taking your time to talk to me. And I'm sorry, the dates again, August?
Will be August 22nd through 25th.
At the Mandalay Bay. Go to the website. All the details are there. Especially
and look for the ILTACON link, and it'll give you all the information.
Good deal. All right. Well, thanks again, Joy, and here's to continued success.
Thank you, my friend.
All righty. Bye-bye.